And then tomorrow turned into a week. And then it turned into a month. And at that point where hope just disappears. Within a few weeks, all my stuff had gone. I've got nothing but the clothes I'm wearing. But the hardest part about that wasn't the homelessness, so to speak. It was the fact that people would say to me, hang on, wait, you're from England. Don't your parents love you? What are you doing here? Your parents must really hate you to do this. So I would tell people that my whole family died in a car crash and I was an orphan. So I was under this bridge. And then one day I walked into a bar and I used to have this begging routine that I would do.
That's how you were making your money?
That's how I was making money. And one day I walked into a bar and one of my uncles happened to be there on this day. And he saw me, took me in.
At this point, the story goes in a direction that no one would have expected. Gamal encountered another distant family member, one he vaguely remembered from childhood. This uncle was a magician. Not just any magician, but Professor Pella, Nigeria's most famous stage-performing illusionist at the time. There was something about Gamal that caught Pella's attention. He was tasked with being a hype man, a kind of warm impact for the main event.
Professor Pella was like West Africa's version of David Copperfield.
Right. Is he an actual professor?
Professor of magic.
Okay.
He called himself. He was massive. And I'd known him in London because he used to come and do tricks, shows in London for the Nigerian community here.
Mm-hmm.
So I already knew him from when we were a kid. And because I had an English accent, he decided to make me his warm-up man. You know, you got this stadium full of people. And I was on the stage saying, are you ready for some magic? And I'm just hearing the roar of this crowd. Are you ready? I don't think you're ready. I can't hear you. And I loved it.
It must have been quite a shift.
It was
a few months earlier being homeless.
Yeah.
And now you're actually
on stage.
On stage with adoration.
I always felt like an outsider. I always felt I was an observer, not a participant. It felt almost as if my life was on hold.
And after Professor Pella's tour ended, Gamal was dropped. He got a factory job and saved money. The plan was to buy a ticket and get back to the UK. But that's easier said than done with a factory wage.
I got this job in the steel plant and I was earning the equivalent of about £25 a month. But it came with a room, which was my own, the first space I had to call my own. There's some white people that work here. This white guy, Richard, he was the only one from England. And that was the beginning of a friendship. And I remember sort of like every time I went to his house, he would cook English food. And to me, it was like going back to his house was like going back to England. And then his wife came over on holiday. And I would do the shopping for them. As if you were white and went to the market, somehow the prices just jumped up.
Right.
And then at the end of her trip, we had this party. And at the end of the party, there was about 4 of us, 5 of us just sitting around in the living room trying to drink the last drops of alcohol, etc. And Richard says, why don't you go back to England? I said, sorry? He goes, you clearly don't fit in here. You don't belong here. And I said, how? I can't afford it. He said, well, where's your passport? My dad had told me that I wasn't entitled to a British passport. And I never questioned that because I didn't know anything about passports. So I said, oh, I'm Nigerian. I've only got a Nigerian passport. So Richard said, well, where were you born? I said, I was born in London. He goes, well, you're entitled to a British passport. And I'm like, and then he said, I'll tell you what, when my wife goes back, we'll get a copy of your birth certificate, we'll get the form, we'll get you a new passport. And I'm like, okay. So a few weeks later, the passport arrives. Richard says, I'm going to hold on to this because I don't want anyone to steal it off you. And then about a week or so later, I went round his house, throws this envelope to me across the table. He says, that's yours. And I open up this envelope. And inside this envelope is my passport. The first class ticket back to London. You sit there and you think, this is not something I ever expected to happen. In that moment, I was just speechless. And I found out later there was a couple of the expats that worked there, all contributed money together. And I think it was not only what they did, it was the fact that they saw something in me that was worth investing in. They saw, and I think, yeah, they saw something of value in me. I suppose in some ways it was the first time I'd been seen on some level.
Were you scared about returning to England, or was this now a huge opportunity?
I didn't think it would happen. I thought something's going to go wrong.
So when you make it, for a lot of people there'd be this sense of, I'm going to be reunited with a family. You've got a foster family, you've got a birth family. Was any of that on your mind, or did you just want to start a new life now?
The main thing that was on my mind is I did not want to see my natural family.
You just didn't want to see them?
For some reason, I still don't know the reason, I didn't think of going to my foster parents. I ended up working in the shop where, as a kid, I was caught shoplifting.
And now we
were working with police officers who used to come in to pick up the shoplifters. And over time, because we were working in such close proximity, they went from being the police to now I was seeing Brian and Bob and Pete and Mary, and we started hanging out and going for drinks and socialising. And they said to me, you ever consider joining the job? I thought, no, it's not for me.
But these experiences with the police stayed on Gamal's mind. Could he be a cop? He had bad experiences with the police when he was younger, but he also remembered the first time he saw a black officer. It was something that has stayed with him even today.
He was directing traffic and he put his hand up to stop the cars, and all the cars stopped. And I remember whoa.
Now, as an adult back in London, and with a chance at a new life, he thought through his options. Perhaps the police fraternity is where Gamal would finally find his place in the world.
It took me 3 years and 5 applications before I was accepted. In fact, on the last application, they said this thing where you do this 2 days of assessments, and I was invited for this 2 days of assessments. And on the first day,